Welcome back. We've been discussing financial therapy, and with us today is financial therapist Jillian Knight. And Jillian, just before the break, we were talking, you specialize in women, helping women, and that they do have some unique challenges. And maybe we can start there and talk about those challenges and how you help.
Yeah, so there's sort of there's layers to this, right? So even from a young age, women, especially if you're growing up somewhere that follows more traditional gender roles, women are encouraged to be caregivers through play, through babysitting, through the careers that they choose to go into a lot of times. And whereas a lot of men tend to be, they're given blocks and they're taught to build, and there's an assumption that they will provide and they will invest and they will sort of take on that role with money. And so there's that whole dynamic of women either being sort of getting the message which is sort of what I had internalized myself, which was like women aren't good with money, women aren't because they're not good at math or numbers, which is absolutely not true.
True,
and
that's right.
And when we are conditioned to be the caregivers, that means that things like once we have children, that a lot of the caregiving tends to fall on the woman or the daughter. That is all unpaid work, right? And so that is the difference between, that can be the difference between money that a woman is earning versus what a man is earning by being in the workforce, and that we don't necessarily value that unpaid labor. And so if you're looking at over time, women leaving their careers either to have babies or to have children and be the ones taking care of them, because that's sort of the expectation, that combined with we still have a pay gap between men and women, and that's even more so for women of color. And then you also throw in the number of single moms trying to work with less pay, also pay for childcare, which is astronomical, and they're just trying to survive in a lot of ways while also having the message that they're probably not all that good with money. And so a lot of times we are encouraged to look to our husband or look to our father to be the ones to who are just, automatically better at those things, even though I would say women are actually better investors when they understand how it works. And so there's sort of all of these things that get wrapped up in women staying small and not taking responsibility for their own financial health because they don't think that they're capable. And so that's a big part of my work with women. And especially, there's also a stereotype around spending where women are seen as extravagant spenders when men spend money just as much. They just call it something else, like hobbies. And
is that how I can get away with it? Hobbies. All right.
And then, women are taught to save the most money at the grocery store and save, where men are taught to invest. So if you think long-term about long-term financial health and the fact that women live longer than men, sorry, but they do, then you end up with women down the line with not knowing how to manage money or not having enough money to manage because they weren't as involved in making of the money.
Well, how do you attack that then? It seems to me there's a lot of layers from individual choice in what one chooses. And then again, if you don't have the knowledge, how do you gain it?
Right.
I guess. And then you have the relationship between the husband and wife, and that's a dynamic unto itself. So why don't you break that down? If I came in with my wife, or my wife came here and said, the damn hobby Bill has, I mean, what would you say to her? How would you direct her?
Yeah. So, I'll preface this by saying there are a lot of systemic issues that I cannot address as one therapist who is recognizing sort of all of these things that are working against people, because we tend to think of it as an individual problem, but a lot of times it's really a collective issue that we're trying to deal with individually. So what I can do is help people do the best they can to manage in that system, right? So when it comes to women, a lot of times my clients will either be more avoidant of money, so they won't look at their bank account, or they're spending, but they're not looking at like how much they're spending, how much debt they have. And that makes them anxious. And the more anxious they feel, the more likely they are to avoid it. And then they feel ashamed. And it's sort of this spiral, right? Where some of the work is most people don't have a safe place to talk about money. And so a lot of the work is creating a very non-judgmental, empathetic space for women and for couples to be able to explore like all of these feelings, all of these like subconscious beliefs that they have maybe been holding on to from family, from different experiences throughout life that are impacting them now that they might not realize. And so that's a lot of the work. With couples, it's a lot of even just helping them have conversations about money in a different way. Whereas they've been trying this on their own and it's clearly not working. So helping them figure out what it's really about, because it's often not actually about the money.
When you have a couple and you have two people working, a lot of times they combine and pay. Some don't. They keep their own accounts and do their own thing. Is there a better way to do that? How would you? I know the discussion has to take place, but I always thought that was part of the relationship to begin with. I mean, God help me if I were to go buy an expensive hobby without first talking to my wife and vice versa. Is that not happening today, or?
No, I think it's happening. I see all kinds of stuff. So some people have combined their accounts together completely, and some people, and that works for them. Whereas like some people really need like joint accounts and separate accounts for spending, where, you know what, you get guilt-free spending money to go do what you want to do with it. And I'm not going to criticize you for what you chose to spend that on, just like I don't expect you to do that of me. I think that, I think there's also some differences in some people are more comfortable spending more, whereas other people want to hold on to money for the long term. And you have different sort of, you have to figure out a way to do it that meets both people's needs.
I was going to say, oftentimes, like I suppose, I can't say all because I don't have stats on that, but a lot of times you'll have someone who is more frugal, right? And others, and the spouse is maybe the complete opposite. So if you were to sit down and talk to them, what in the world would you say to that? How do you fix that?
Yeah. Well, so a lot of times the spenders get a bad rep because we, for some reason, think that you should.
Oh, you're a spender.
So I used to be.
Okay.
I was if you want to put them into categories, which I don't really believe in these categories, but spenders and savers, because we can be different ways in different situations. But I was a spender and my husband was a saver when we got married. But his thing was like, because of how he grew up, he felt safest holding on to money, which is very common. But it's also healthy to be able to spend money and not feel bad about it in, certain amounts within limits. So just because I spent money, it doesn't mean that I was wrong. But often he would sort of win in the short term because it's like a difference between doing the thing and not doing the thing, if that makes sense. So it's really about helping both partners understand like where that comes from. So like say if it's the partner that likes to spend, maybe they grew up with not a lot of money, but their reaction to it is instead to spend because they didn't get to spend as a kid, whether they have the money to do that or not. And so getting to understand your partner and like why they do what they do is a really good first step.
Awesome. We're going to come back. We have a lot more to talk about, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes.